What is up, nerds and nerdettes? Welcome back to another episode of The Pull. I'm your host, AJ Kunze. I hope you all brought your fedoras and flannels, so we're about to get hip as fuck this week. Disclaimer: The Pull and Video Game Time Machine do not support hipsters nor hipsterism. Fedoras are dumb looking, PBR tastes like milky garbage water, you don't even know what gluten actually is, and for fuck's sake, vaccinate your kids, you dirty hippies. But jokes about hipsters aside, just kidding, I would never put aside jokes about hipsters. Anyway, this week we are going to go a lot into how comic books come together. Basically the process of mixing words and pictures and how to do it effectively, because a lot of books came out this week that are either really good illustrations on how to do that or extra shit ones. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's see what this week's selection of comic books can teach us about comic books as a whole. I communicated in a previous episode my conflicted feelings about Jeff Lemire taking over this all-new Hawkeye storyline. And while I love Lemire, he has a very saccharine tone to his writing. It doesn't really play well with this sort of pithy, quippy character that Hawkeye is. And the first issue of the series managed to maintain the soul of Fraction's run, but in issue 2, the marriage between Hawkeye and Lemire is starting to be in need of therapy. Gone is the quippy, playful 70s pulpy style of Fraction, and instead we have a much more Lemire sort of story. And truth be told, that's fine. Lemire doesn't have to be Fraction. As a writer, he has his right to come to a book and put his own stamp on it, to give the book its own identity. The issue is, he doesn't really go for that. He tries to maintain that quippiness, that punchiness, that quick-wittedness of Fraction's run, and then mix it with elements that don't complement that tone. Most notably, the magic MacGuffin of this plot are these radioactive, genocidal, mutated potato children. It's kind of insinuated that the potato children have a rather tortured upbringing. No, the mutated, weaponized killer children have a tortured past. And Lemire tries to reflect the tortured past of the children with Hawkeye's own less than ideal upbringing. This could have been cool if the rest of the tone of the book sort of reflected that, but no. Lemire still tries to do the wittiness, the punchiness, the, oh, I'm fighting you, bad guy, and now I'm making jokes about how I'm fighting you. That, and Raymond Perez tries to replicate an art style similar to what Aja was doing, and all of this kind of feels bastardized and glued together. Lemire isn't letting him be himself, and at the same time isn't staying close enough to Fraction's formula for it to feel familiar and comfortable. It just feels all stitched and glued, and that it could come apart at any moment. His Animal Man run was brilliant because it was his run. It was different. It set a whole new mythos. It was unchained. This is sutured to old stories and old creative decisions. It needs to break out and be something different. You don't have to be Matt Fraction's run. We have Matt Fraction's run. I love it. And you telling a different story won't make that run disappear. It will still be there for me to enjoy and reread and to have. Now I want your idea. I want your vision. So give it to me before I come and take it directly out of your brain. Breaking news, Saga's really good. I've been reading Saga since it came out, and I haven't talked about it on the show yet because talking about how incredibly great something is boring. Something as good as Saga isn't always that interesting to have a discussion about. It very quickly turns into this like jerk-off session, and no one wants to see that. Actually, if the rest of the internet is evidence of a lot of people actually want to see that. But going along with the theme of dissecting how comic books are put together, there's a lot of really interesting stuff that can be gleaned from Brian K. Vaughan's work. Brian K. Vaughan is one of the most revered creators working in our industry right now, and it's easy to see why. He's just fucking near flawless. But having said that, there is a very simple formula to almost any issue written by Brian K. Vaughan. You start with an opening scene that is jarring, kind of throwing you into the middle of something that is interesting but not always full of context. This issue, for example, throws us into the middle of a sex scene, which is something that Vaughan also uses a lot of. But think of the strategy there. Sex scenes are interesting and alluring and appeal to a part of ourselves that's going to make us want to stay stuck to that story, that's going to make us want to keep reading. It's going to be filled with a lot of talking head sequences, backdraped against interesting action and vibrant artwork. And then that will all be wrapped up with a badass cliffhanger ending that will shock you and leave you excited to read the next issue, but when you read the series as a whole, it's not going to feel gimmicky or forced like last page cliffhangers often do. It's not bad having a formula, because it's what he fills that formula with that is interesting. The way the panels progress in a Brian K. Vaughan book are always incredibly simple. 5 to 7 panels, very sequential, boom, boom, boom. Next page, same thing. Rarely uses splash pages or full page images, and he never does any of those crazier page layouts that you can see writers like Scott Snyder use. That approach could lead to a rather flat, static feeling book, but he always makes sure to team up with artists that have a lot of flash within the panel. So you never feel like you're being robbed in the art or design department. And the clarity of this design is really, really well illustrated in this issue. He's trying to communicate the flashback that Marco is going through while juxtaposing it against his current situation. And the way it flows so smoothly, you can jump decades in time from panel to panel, and it's always clear and engaging and interesting. You never have to slow down and go, oh, wait, what's that? Oh, okay, now I get it. Fires off the page, through your eyeballs, into your skull, and then down into your heart. That's how biology works. Science. This is the part where I tell you to read Saga, but don't just read Saga. Go back, read Ex Machina, read Why the Last Man. Hell, even go and read Brian K. Vaughan's Ultimate X-Men stuff. Everything the guy does is a clinic on how to clearly tell a story in comic books. If you're trying to write comic books, do it like him. A long time ago, in a galaxy that never existed, a bunch of core planets were attacked by these giant robots called harvesters. They showed up one day, kind of came around, acted like assholes, wrecked everything, blew up some planets, killed some people. All that stuff. So after the harvesters left, the remaining humans basically decided that robots. The remaining humans basically decided that robots would go fuck themselves and destroyed everything. The main heart of the story is many years after the Harvester attack, a tiny robot boy named Tim activates on a abandoned mining facility. Tim has the same robot DNA as the Harvester, so now everyone in the galaxy wants to get this boy. But the first people that show up are these bounty hunters that are basically intergalactic Kanos from Mortal Kombat. So Intergalactic Kano and his space herpy dog are hunting Tim throughout the entirety of this issue. The hunt takes place as Tim's memories are starting to reboot. So moments of extreme terror as he's being hunted are juxtaposed against these moments where he's remembering his human family. He's still unsure of who he is and who this family is and what his role in this family was. The idea of a robot trying to be human is not novel in science fiction, but in this issue, it's really emphasized that Tim is trying to be human without really understanding what it is to be human, like a lot of people I know. The bouncing back and forth between time periods is often very jarring in storytelling, but Lemire plans this out very well, where it literally goes one page present, one page flashback, one page present, one page flashback. And you don't even realize that's how he broke it up, but it creates such a nice rhythm that you always feel engaged, and it feels like one story as opposed to two stories running next to each other. I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end of this book, but it's fucking sad. Think of cutting onions at your mom's funeral sad. But it's sad without being gimmicky or feels like he's trying to make you sad. It feels like a sad moment in a planned narrative, which makes it even more effective. This book is going to end up being criminally underread, so don't be one of those pricks that misses it. We are back again to the surface. When I talked about the first issue of Surface, I mentioned how it was an absolutely fascinating train wreck, where everything was so big and flashy and just completely lacking the ability to communicate what it's trying to say. Issue number 2 is all those same problems written in neon letters. Writer Al Scott is very, very clearly trying to make a statement about what fiction is and how fiction is a projection of something that's not real and possibly a projection of either something the writer's trying to say or something that you are trying to glean as a reader. Well, no fucking shit. Fiction's not real and it's reflective of the human condition. Because you know me, I thought comic books were real. I always pick up an Avengers book and I'm like, oh fuck, I didn't read about this in the newspaper. When did Galactus show up and blow up New York? Figured that would have been on CNN. We know fiction is fiction, and we know it's a giant series of tied together metaphors. We know. You need to not simply tell us your point, you have to interpret that point, you have to comment on that point, you have to expand on that point, and that's what Surface never does. It tries to entertain you with the color of its writing rather than the substance of its idea. I almost wish that the art in this book wasn't as good as it is because it feels so wasted on its sloppy, unfocused narrative. Because the art is really, really incredible. I mean, some of the best you will find in the medium. It uses color to reflect mood. It understands how to appropriate space for word bubbles without obscuring art. It understands how to communicate ideas based on character placement. It considers the position of characters versus the position of the reader. It does everything so well, and then the story happened. Everything Scott tries to say, he says 10 times with different words. There's an economy to communicating an idea. Communicate ideas clearly to your reader and then move on to the next idea or next plot point. Don't spin poetically forever. And that's what Scott does. He tries to show us how good a writer he is by writing more, while what actually makes a writer good is his ability to say more with less. So if you really are set on enjoying the surface, get really fucked up on paint thinner and just page through and look at the pictures. But me personally, I'm gonna move on and read some other stuff. That does it for an extra pretentious episode of The Pull. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and I hope you found this kind of rambling dissection of comic books interesting, and I hope you gleaned something. And I hope I gave you a lot to talk about, and if you want to talk about it, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. If there's any books I didn't talk about that you want to hear about, again, leave that in the comments below. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter and the street. Also, if you can give us some of those likes and shares, it really helps us out. If you go to the bibliography of this episode and you check the citation for that bit of information, it's the end of every vlog ever. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date, make sure to hit that subscribe button. For a new subscriber we get this week, I'll actually give one shit about the fact that baseball season has started. Anyway, make sure you come back next week and every week until the end of time for a new episode of The Pull. Now get out of here and go read comics.